Welcome to Learning to Glow, a show about wellness, skin health, and self-development. I'm your host, Jess. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, and skincare expert. I'm so excited to share tips on how to achieve healthy skin and bring amazing guests in the field of health, fitness, aging gracefully, and personal growth. Let's explore all different ways we can take care of ourselves as women, both inside and out, to truly shine. So let's get glowing. Hello and welcome to Learning to Glow podcast. This is your host, Jess. We have a special episode today, and we dive into the ancient Chinese practice of face reading with Dr. Juli Kramer. Julie uses her 30 years as an educator to teach you the health, happiness, and longevity benefits of Chinese medicine. She is a diplomaed Chinese medicine nutritional therapist and has received multiple certifications for TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, from Chinese institutions. Julie earned her PhD in curriculum and instruction and counseling psychology and her master's in psychology. I was lucky enough to have experienced a face reading with Julie. The results were incredibly accurate. I love how she shares with us what to do with the knowledge once we have it, once you've had your reading. What do you do with that information? How we can use it to improve our health, both physically and emotionally. She also shares other tips for health, such as digestion tips and overall longevity from an Eastern perspective. It was such helpful information. I learned a lot in this episode. She was a delight to have on the show, and you are going to want to share this episode with a friend. It's too good. Also, if you have not taken advantage of our coupon code for our all-natural skincare line, Simply Jess, the code is podcast. You will receive 20% off the entire line, your whole purchase. If you need a skincare routine help, or if you want to try a sample first, just let me know. You can message us at jess@learningtoglow.com. And you can also send me a message on Instagram, same handle, Simply Jess Skincare. We can help you out. And now on to our amazing conversation with Julie. I hope you enjoy this one. Thank you, Julie, so much for being here.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me, Jessica, or Jess. I'm so super happy to be here.
Thank you. So happy to see you again. So I like to start all of my podcasts by, if you could just give us a little bit of background about yourself, and then we will go from there.
Okay, awesome. My name is Dr. Juli Kramer. I currently am helping people use Asian and shamanic healing practices to be healthy and happy in a nutshell. And the path that I took to get here is really different, really interesting. The first thing that I would say is when I was 11 years old, I was at an overnight camp, and I used to get migraines all the time. And I had this horrible, horrible migraine, and the counselor said, go back to the cabin, just kind of try and breathe it off. And I remember we had done some meditation earlier in the day, and I was like, oh, I wonder maybe that'll help. And so I focused on a light in my body, just kind of clearing the energy, watching it leave out of the top of my head. And I kid you not, in 10 minutes, my headache was gone. And my whole brain, the little 11-year-old self was going, how is that possible? And that kind of stuck with me, just kind of lingering in the back of my brain. And then I went on life, just, journey through life, good and bad choices, good and bad health, things like that. And then in my, just kind of after finishing college, I got into education. So I was an educator for many years. I was also an overnight camp director at the same time doing that, and always was thinking about people's mental health. So my students' mental health, my staff members' mental health, my own personal, my family, it was always on my brain. I got my master's in psychology, and I still had so many questions about what makes people thrive, not just be healthy, right? So I was always wondering, what makes us really shine and find that true kernel within ourselves of who we are and what we're supposed to be doing. And during my doctorate, I really explored that. I looked at visual arts classrooms and creative caring teachers and how that changed kids' lives. And part of that was also, I did part of my doctorate in counseling psychology. So the counseling psychology part was all deficit-based. What's your problem? What's your diagnosis? Where are you weak? And my research for the curriculum and instruction part of my doctorate was, what are your strengths? What makes you happy? What makes you glow? And that really was very powerful for me. And so I went on continuing my education path and went to China to help a new school, actually a Chinese school, very old school, very famous school in Shanghai, start their Western curriculum. And when I lived there, I was like, oh my gosh, people just know this is the question they ask all the time. What actions do I need to take? What do I need to do to be super healthy? And it blew my mind because I would come home to America. People were sick and obese and, just miserable so much of the time and struggling with this health element and that mental health element. And it just wasn't the way. So when I moved back in 2018, I was there for 2 years. I said to my husband, okay, I need to get out of the schools and into helping people do this. And I myself, before living in China, right when I was doing my doctorate, had health problems that acupuncture helped for. So I was like, okay, something is here. And all of those scenarios led me to this point where I'm dedicating my life to use tools to help people start and move towards health instead of avoiding illness.
That's incredible. I love the framework, what you said about how here we're sort of focused on what's wrong and the negative versus how can we do something in the name of health and like keeping it on that positive side. That's such a different framework. And not only just like education, but you also like the medicine and the health care. So did you see, you were working with more education in China, but did you see their medicine and their
Yeah.
healthcare system being very different?
Oh my goodness. So because I had acupuncture here in America, of course, and that is my primary healthcare model. I might have a Chinese medicine doctor because my Western medicine doctors failed me. Back in my 30s is when it began, was having what a lot of women experience, what we call perimenopause, and there they just call it subhealth status. Because
Oh,
if you have a health status, you don't have perimenopause. You have your regular menstrual flow, everything's good, and then you're in menopause. And so they don't go through this very horrible time of heavy clotting, of bleeding maybe for longer than the menstrual cycle should last, things like that. And my Western doctor was very much take this hormone, microwave your uterus, do all these things. And I'm like, that's just masking symptoms. So I adopted acupuncture and Chinese medicine, herbal health as my model. So when I was in China, I used to go to the public Shanghai hospital and there were like, hundreds of people waiting, doing acupuncture in the clinic all the time. Western medicine was used for what Western medicine is great for: acute crises. You have a broken bone, you have an appendix rupture, you have something that's acute that requires operation or setting of a bone, things like that. But for health, everybody in most of the people, at least at the hospitals that I went to. And then I actually met my mentor. I found her in a book. She's written 5 books now, and it was like, oh my gosh, she's practicing in Shanghai. So I found her and we became fast friends. And she's actually one of my advisors for my business now. And so I
oh,
learned from her, taking many courses from her about how do you live this healthy life? So people there, I can talk about it in my school. I had students who were really healthy physically and mentally, and they were middle schoolers and high schoolers, so 6th grade through 12th grade. And then there were kids who were obese or heavier. There were no obese kids at the school. They're just heavier and had a lot more mental health problems. And the kids who were healthier, they had a Chinese, a more plant-based, health-based, not processed food diet versus the Western diet. They knew principles like these are middle schoolers. Like if the girls had their periods, everybody knew about it. You talked about it. It's not a big deal. Those are things you talk about. And the boys would see the girls eating ice cream or drinking ice water and like, stop, you can't do that right now. That's bad for you. It's your period, And so it's like everybody, they just knew. And in the parks, the biggest healthcare practice is that People voluntarily set up their own exercise regimen. So from 5 in the morning until 10 at night, sometimes later, there are classes going on. And imagine, like, by my little apartment, within 1 mile radius of my house, there were 10 of these places, and each one had hundreds of people doing, whether qigong, which is a form of exercise, tai chi, dancing, like couples dancing, ballroom dancing, Chinese dancing, all sorts of things. Hundreds of people, like, kind of scheduling in the park to do these things every morning and every night. So
And
it's
this was this
remarkable.
happening all day, or just kind of like in the morning and the
Oh,
night?
it would be all day too. I only saw it in the morning and night before I had to go to work. And then I was at work. We work very hard in China. Everybody works very hard. So on the weekends, in the afternoons, I definitely saw it all the time. People in the parks. Yeah.
Oh
All
my
over
gosh.
China too, not just in Shanghai. Yeah. So it's living a lifestyle for optimal health. It's literally moving forward towards that health. And one of the things we're going to talk about is face reading, and I'll kind of help kind of show how that ties into it as well.
I love that. It's very interesting that the children were aware of these health concerns, or like little things that we should tweak when we're on certain days of our cycle, for example. And you can tell it's obviously something that they just grew up knowing. And then,
Yes.
of course, Chinese medicine has been around a lot longer than what we have. And so I think a lot of times here in this culture, we just don't know any better, and we're not taught from our doctors or our parents or whatever. So it's definitely, it seems like a very big culture shock for you being there.
It was, and I wasn't shocked when I was there. I was actually elated.
Yeah.
I was shocked when I came home. I
Uh,
was really, it just, oh my gosh, I can't. Each time I came home a few times each year during the 2 years, because my husband was still living in Colorado, and it broke my heart. I just saw these children, oh my gosh, these children under 20 in motor scooters are so heavy they could barely move. Or, I mean, just like, you just don't see that there. And then I saw elderly people. Actually, what shocked me is I never see elderly people here. I hardly ever see them out walking and doing. And in the parks, I would see hundreds, thousands of old people. Like, they're not hidden away in a home. They're moving, they're vibrant, and that was the biggest shock for me, that, like, what are we doing that, one, old people might not be able to do it, and that we're locking people up. And I live by two elderly, one assisted living and one really more intense care home. And I never see people out walking ever. Yeah.
yeah. We were just talking on one of my past episodes about the health benefits of being outside,
Yeah.
but then also when you kind of combine the exercise with in nature, and how like that's just like a compound effect in such a positive way for our health. Yeah, it shows you the fact that they're still being active and being outside. That's what keeps you in good shape, first of all, to be able to do that and just kind of having that movement in your life. So, what
Yeah.
did you do when you came back to the States?
So when I came back, I really finished up a lot of certificates. So it was super important for me to, even though I had lived it, and I had really the 2 years and the training that I had in China was way beyond anything that I've done in any certificate course, but we need to have the paper because that builds trust and confidence. And so I got certificates in Chinese medicine, nutritional therapy, Chinese medicine content in general, my Qigong teacher training, and then face reading. So really just dove in and bolstered there. It would just reaffirmed what I had already known. So the face reading was new, though. That was completely new. And the reason I stepped into that was being at the site, part of my doctorate in psychology. I often found with my clients that they were stuck. I do a lot of narrative therapy. And what narrative therapy is that you have our life, imagine it as a series of stars in the sky, if you will. And you connect one set of dots to make a certain constellation that is your life. But look at all these other stars that are available that you haven't even focused on. And so in narrative therapy, we say, well, what about that star? That's a unique outcome when you were happy. What happened then? And so what face reading I thought was it helped identify those other stars. It helped identify other experiences that you might have overlooked as a potential source of happiness or a potential source of strength, of overcoming barriers. And so that's where face reading really resonated with me, because it was a shortcut to getting other ways to find your happiness.
I love that description. And we have done a face reading together. So I know what it is, but could for the listeners who've never heard of it, can you kind of explain what face reading actually is and what you do and all of that?
Absolutely. Face reading, the way that I have been trained, is based on an 800-year-old practice with 300 years of written record in this particular familial line through Lillian Bridges. And I came to it via C.T. Holman. So the legacy is very important in face reading. And so with this practice, we look at different features of the face, and they're rooted in Chinese medicine, the 5 phases or 5 elements. And that's metal, water, wood, fire, and earth. And we look at the features of the face and determine which aspects, what each aspect is showing us. And there's the overall look, which is kind of called your peach look. What's the overall feeling and face you present to the world? We look at your shen, or your spirit that really comes through in your eyes. What do we see? Health. Do we see vibrancy radiating? And then we break it down into more detailed parts. So we have zones of the face that tell us how you problem solve in the world, how you are in relationship to others. And we look at things that talk about money, career options, your romantic style, there is health reading. I focus on social emotional versus health, but we look at a lot of health things. We look at past trauma, emotions that might be stuck in the body, lessons you might need to still learn, a lot of different variables. We look at, are you giving too much to others? Are you a little too selfish? Are you stubborn? Are you too not stubborn, right? Like you don't have enough will. And so all of these things come together where we get a picture of who you are at this point in your life, because your face is always changing. Always changing. Lillian Bridges tells a story of she was teaching women face reading class, and many of them were not married. They wanted to be married, and marriage and kind of this feminine side is what we call yin energy. And so they were very low, very high yang, masculine energy, very low yin. So they focused on enhancing their yin energy to open up to romance. And many of them, I think the number, I don't want to quote it, but I want to say around 6 of the women were in relationships by the end of the course. And they actually developed widow's peaks and really changed their structure. So it's pretty powerful that when you do a face reading and you see an area for growth, you're like, oh yeah, I can work on that. So it's great.
That is incredible. I remember you when we had our reading, you had said something about a line on the face and how it could actually change. And some of these things, when like you were the example you just gave, you can actually see a change in a physical trait on your face based
Yep.
on something that happens in your life.
Yep. And I'll give an example right now. So we have emotional lines on our face, and skepticism in Chinese medicine is an emotion. It's related to kind of overthinking, the minor water element of the forehead, and you'll have 2 lines above your brows. I've had a forehead, very clear forehead most of my life. And during the pandemic, I developed 2 lines above each eyebrow. And I was like, oh, darn it, I'm being too skeptical. Like,
Oh my gosh.
didn't know there were a lot more questions than there were answers. And so I realized, whoa, my face did that. So I'm still now working. It's taken about a year and a half. They're reduced, they're less, but they still are there. And I'm like, okay, I got to let go of whatever I'm taking in that is building the skepticism in my life. And so that's a great example of one of the lines that we can work on.
I love that. So, one of the things when we did our reading, I feel like it was very detailed and there was a lot of information. one thing that I thought was so interesting was how accurate the reading was and how I resonated with so much of what was said. And I just felt like it rang true. And I was really surprised about that. Do you find that's a pretty typical reaction from your clients?
Incredibly. Like I always, as you know, when I do the reading, I check in, right? Making sure, because the face, there are things that can be, I'm not sure about this, what about that? Because we do fit from photographs. And then when I meet you via, I'll do a virtual session, I can see a lot more in motion. But it's very accurate. People are like, how did you know this about me? Like, how did you know this? And it's not fortune telling, it's not magic, it's hundreds of years of case studies. So think about it. The early face readers, if they were not successful, they wouldn't get clients. So the data that was accurate, so we call it case study data. And that's one of my favorite things about Chinese medicine is there's thousands of years of written record of case study data in the real world, not a laboratory, controlling for variables. Like it's like we're living our lives. How do we have treatments and methods that keep us healthy in the real world? And so the face readers, if someone came to them, oh, I need to find a spouse, or I need to know who to hire. I need to know, should I go into business for myself or should I work for somebody? The face readers would look at the face, provide readings, and what worked they kept and what didn't they let go of. And that's the beauty of a method that has hundreds of years of this case data. So it's not surprising to me that it's so
Sure.
accurate. Yeah.
But it is to your clients, and it was to me. So when you've completed a face reading with a client,
Yeah.
and you give such an amazing report that has all of the information, so you don't have to worry about memorizing everything that you say.
Right.
What do you recommend people do with that info once they have it?
Yeah. What I recommend, first of all, is identify one area that was something you want to celebrate and do more of. So let's say that you found we did a face reading and we find that you should be in business for yourself, for example. And you were wondering, am I making a mistake? But we found that you're a good risk taker, you have good financial risk taking ability, and you thrive when are your own employer, your own boss. And so I would maybe focus on how can you step into that with more comfort. How can you do that? Another one example would be if we look at your zones of your face and we notice that you're the kind of person that you're very intuitive. Your gut instinct is very important for you, yet you keep trying to think your way through problems. Maybe that's the one thing you work on is how to slow down, tune into your gut, and make sure that you are using that for your decision-making ability. So focusing on one area to continue. Then what is one area of growth? And you can revisit the face reading. You can even do a subsequent face reading if it's been a couple of years. I recommend it because, as we said, your face changes based on your life experience. And where can you grow? So let's say that you have earlobes that indicate you might not be set up for retirement. And you have a chin that shows you should retire early. Those are two indicators that, you might need to talk with a financial planner. You might want to make sure that you are setting yourself up to really begin working on having this future that you don't have to worry about. And so one area of growth that can be there for you.
I love that. That's such a great because it's really a tool. The results of the reading are such a tool for you to take and, keep going with. So I
Yeah.
love that. And you mentioned before you are, I don't remember the title that you had explained, but with nutrition.
Oh,
And talk to us about how you help people with that.
yeah. So actually, I don't do that anymore for Western
Mm.
clients. I only do it for very select people. So if you really, really want to talk with me, please do. I do Chinese medicine nutritional therapy. And what I do is people take very detailed health assessment, a 10-page assessment created by my colleague, James Saper. He's an acupuncturist up in Canada. And from there, we identify your top 4 physical imbalances. It could be what we call liver qi stagnation, phlegm damp. That's a very common one. For those two are very common in Western people. And we go through and we come up with food recommendations and lifestyle recommendations to help you bring your body back into balance. And the reason I kind of slowed it down is that Westerners have a perspective. It's very difficult for them to not eat different foods all the time, right? I mean, not eat the same foods all the time. I want different, I want variety, I want always something new. And when your body's in a state of imbalance, and especially when people's numbers are really, really out of balance, you're kind of eating the same thing at least for a month, if not 6 months. And especially if you're grappling with cancer. So people like, I'm so bored, I can't do this. I mean, and in China, it's no problem. Okay, I need to eat this way. I'm, 45, 50 years of age. I need a more bland diet. So it's a really challenging perspective to undo years of really programming by billions of dollars from the food industry that we should be able to eat what we want whenever we want. And I just felt like I wasn't being successful as I am with face reading, because face reading, it's an immediate hit, right? It's an immediate thing. I know what I can do. I know I should work on this. I can take steps to do that. But I love it. And the people that stick with it, their lives are changed in the nutritional therapy. They literally losing weight that they never thought they could lose. Menstrual, like the whole cycle problems, people, getting rid of, PCOS, getting rid of so many other problems that they have. Mental health, people struggling with depression, it goes away. But again, it's a commitment. It's a very powerful commitment. And it's not for most Westerners, is pretty much how I like to say it.
I feel like there are things that we're attached to too that I don't think many people know could be harmful to our bodies. Like something as simple as, I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I love ice. And
Yeah,
I know that is a
the
total
worst.
no
Yeah,
or
any
in
cold
Chinese medicine.
drinks, yeah. And unless it's the summer and it's hot, and unless you're under 50, if you're eating actually 40, but if you're under 50, over 50, eating ice and not even drinking warm water, you are weakening what we call it is digestive fire. Your stomach and spleen are a system. The spleen is the fire underneath the pot of the stomach. And if either of those is too cold, you really can't draw any energy. So imagine, have you ever gone dived into a cold lake or a cold swimming pool?
Yes.
Okay, what do you do? What happens to your body?
I feel like I get smaller.
Yeah.
I
Do you start shivering?
oh
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Your body's trying to heat up. So imagine your stomach when you're putting in all of this cold temperature stuff is shivering, shivering, shivering. So what is it not doing? It's not digesting. The microbiome of the stomach doesn't have the warmth, the heat needed to process the food. So when you don't process your food, you become nutrient deficient. You're not breaking it down to get the nutrients that can then go be broken down further in the small intestine, separating what's good from what's waste. And so you're literally just passing food through you. And many times, if you have diarrhea or loose stools after drinking cold drinks or eating ice cream, things like that, that'll let you know. Like you'll see, oh yeah, my body just passed this all through me. I got no benefit at all from the foods that I ate. Raw food is the same way. If we eat raw food too often, the stomach has to work extra, extra hard to try and draw nutrients. So even cooking your food, like steaming it for 5 to 10 minutes, you're going to get exponentially more benefit, more nutrients from that food. So in the lab, raw food has more nutrients, of course, but in the body, cooked food, your body can absorb more nutrients because it's not just passing through you.
That's so interesting. It makes so much sense. I'm actually currently on some herbs,
Yeah.
and the directions for the herbs is I have to heat water first. And then now it's making sense why I had to do that. You add the herbs to warm water and then
Yeah.
drink it.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. And
Yeah.
I like what you said about the seasons too, because I can see having a smoothie in the summer when it's super hot, that seems like it would make more sense than when it's really, I've been in winter having like 3 jackets on and pouring an iced coffee, which I'm like, I know this doesn't make
Oh.
sense, but I just love iced coffee.
And here's the thing, like do it as a treat, but then when you're done with your iced coffee, drink warm water. Bring that temperature back up in your stomach, right? Have your treat and then bring that warmth in. Don't let the body stay in a state of shock, right? Because it's like jumping, you just made your stomach jump into a freezing cold swimming pool. That's how I like to help people think about it. Every time you drink that iced coffee, oh, your poor tummy, right? It's just like that little shivering person in the pool. So bring it some warm water, get it, and then have some ginger cinnamons, things like warming things that can warm up the digestive fire again. And warm smoothies are amazing in the winter. Same ingredients, just heat it up just a little bit. It doesn't have to cook as long as a soup, but soups are great, stews, anything that cooks. The rule of thumb is in the colder months, cook your food a long time at high temperatures. In the summer months, stir fry and steam for a short period of time. And that is perfect for your body. Just simple, easy to follow rules. So have your treat and then so after your iced coffee, have some hot tea or some hot water, something like that to bring your body back up.
That's such a good tip because it's something that we're not taught here.
We're not.
None of that. I'd never know any of that if it wasn't for myself going to an acupuncturist and learning about all of these things. And I love that you can, those are like such small tweaks too, that you can incorporate into your life, which can make such a huge difference, especially so many people have digestive issues.
Yes.
Those two little tips are so amazing. What else can we do? I know this isn't exactly face reading, but little tips that we can do. What can we do for ourselves that have kind of that Chinese philosophy inspiration just for like everyday Americans or Western
I love it.
people?
Yeah, I have. And so I hope, definitely people can visit my website. I have a ton of things for the season, so they can check
Great.
that out. But by the same token, there's an expression in Chinese medicine, two things that I'm going to leave you with. Let's stick with digestion first, and then I'm going to do another one. If you walk 100 steps after every meal, you'll live to 99. So after you eat, don't sit still. Get up. In your house, outside is better. And you mentioned nature earlier. In Chinese medicine, that's why everyone's exercising in the park. Qigong, all energy, we draw more energy from nature, even if we use our imagination. So get outside, but walk 100 steps after every meal and you'll live to 90 or 99. And the reason is we're heating our digestive fire. We're moving energy through our small intestine and large intestine, waking everything up so it can digest. In the summer, after lunch, you can take a nap after you eat. That's the only time. So walk your steps and then take a nap, because the summer heat can really be too much if you're in a place that's hot in the summer. So take a nap yeah, there's so much. I'm going to pause. So that's digestion. Let's just walk 100 steps after you eat. Then the next thing is also related to movement. Where there is movement, there is no pain. Where there is no movement, there is pain. And that's not just for your gross musculoskeletal system. That's for your internal organs. So if you have any bowel problems, large intestine, small intestine, you have blockages there, things are not moving. So doing things like Qigong, where we twist and fold and bend. Yoga has a lot of twisting and folding, wringing out the internal organs. So you're moving your big muscles, your big skeletal functions, and you're moving your lymph system. You're moving the organ system. Then you can eliminate pain. And that also includes emotional pain. When we have physical blockages, our emotions suffer because every organ system is responsible for different emotions. So if you're struggling emotionally, move your body for that particular. So if you're depressed, you want to do twists that move and work on your liver. If you're sad, you want to do deep breathing for your lungs. If you're fearful or anxious, you want to do movement, stroking, massaging your kidneys, things like that will help you. So move as moves so much, and we can see it on your face. So I can look at a face and see emotions. We can see emotional blockages. For example, we'll have the lines that are coming down the cheek that are called sorrow lines. And that I immediately know that person needs to breathe deeply outside, strengthen their lungs so they can work through whatever sorrow is still stuck inside of them and lingering. I can see anger between the brows. So anger and irritation, you'll see that I have mine. And I used to have a lot of anger and irritation. I also have an estrangement in my life. So it's very sad and very frustrating for me that I have that this person I love who's estranged from me. And so when we see those anger lines, boom, we got to work on the liver and gallbladder. We've got to make sure that eating lots of green foods, leafy greens in particular, that we're doing a lot of, reducing our fat, reducing our alcohol, reducing things along those lines to really help with the anger issues, which anger turns into depression if it's not attended to. So,
Wow.
so move. And especially after you eat those 100 steps. And that's going to be that alone can change people's lives.
I love that. Definitely move away from the walking after dinner in like the winter months. But
Walk around your kitchen, just do
that's
it.
right. Yeah, you're right. And I do like that's one thing I do love about as summer approaches and we as a family will take the dog for a walk after dinner and I'm glad because that means I'm going to be living to 99. So
Yep.
I'm like, yes, I'm gonna make sure I put that on my calendar every
And
night.
not just 99, healthy,
Right.
happy, supple, youthful movement, right? Like that's what we want. We don't want to just live to be old. We want to live with youthful movement to that age. And that's what, if the Western expression, if you don't use it, you lose it. And it's the same idea. Yeah.
I love how you can see something on the face and be like, okay, you're seeing strong emotion based on something physical that you see. And then how you could even go back to saying, okay, well, not only can you work on that, but you can also eat a certain thing. So there's so many steps you can take to kind of working on these things that you see just by doing a face reading.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to do a face reading with you, where do they go? Tell us a little bit about that and what else you offer.
All right, wonderful. So I recommend they go to radiantshanti.com. And then at the top, you can click on the all classes page and you'll see a link to the face reading right at the top of the page there. And you just book a face reading. I'll send you an email like I did with you where I have details of what pictures I need you to take for me. And everyone is like, and they're without makeup. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, I look horrible. And it's like, no, you look beautiful.
I
But
definitely said that.
I know everybody does. I was not kidding. Everybody does, even men. And they're not about makeup, but they're like close-up pictures of themselves is what it is. And then I'll give you a link to schedule the appointment. And it's about a week out because it takes me time to make your report. I do as you know, a very detailed report looking at all the different aspects of your face. And then we'll do the face reading and you have an opportunity anytime to email me questions after the face reading for however long you need, about a year, because after a year that we would need to do a new face reading, 1 to 2 years. And the other things we have a membership site that puts these principles I just talked about into practice. And we do Chinese medicine based Ayurvedic medicine. So we have Qigong, yoga. I have a shamanic healer that does animal medicine wheel healing with us, contemplations, meditation, Reiki. I have a Reiki teacher. We do feng shui, which is your living environment based on these 5-element theory, right? How do you have a living environment? And boy, that I got to tell you, insane. I feng shuied my home and the changes were crazy. The teacher that I have teach for me, it was insane. I'm still feeling the repercussions of the changes. It's amazing. So, and again, it can feel overwhelming. And what I love to tell people, like with the face reading, pick one thing. What is one thing? So I have challenges that are really structured. You can do a 25-day health and happiness or a 25-day Qigong challenge, a 14-day yoga Kriya challenge. So really simple, structured things. Or if you're kind of the person that loves to explore, I call it my zone 3 person. You're just I'm going to do this today and try that tomorrow. And yes, and I do facial gua sha too, facial acupressure massage, facial gua sha, all sorts of things for facial beauty that are really rooted in Chinese medicine and very powerful.
I'm a huge fan of facial gua sha, and I'm an esthetician too, and I love them. I think they're so effective. I think everyone should have one. So I would definitely recommend everyone listening to check that out, to check out your site. The feng shui sounds amazing.
Oh
I
yeah.
feel like that's something I should definitely look into.
Yeah, let me know. And if you're interested, I can connect you with Jessie. She's phenomenal. She is, again, that legacy, training her grandmother, her mother, they've all had the training, and she brings it. It's something different when it's been your culture since you were a tiny child. It just is or if you've lived in a place, I really feel that if you've lived in the culture, it just shapes you in a different way. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, this has been lovely. I highly recommend definitely at least the face reading, because I've had it and it was incredible. And I will make sure to link all of this in my show notes so everybody that is listening can go check you out. And just thank you so much. So grateful that you took the time today.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you to all your listeners. I found you because I'm a listener. We're also lucky from all the wonderful speakers you bring on.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.